Hello and welcome to Scandi Mama's Sewing Time, Sewing Moments, Sewing with Scandi Mama, or Sewing Experience. Yes, I have Alan behind the camera today as my assistant, and he came up with many good names. I had so much fun doing the live sewing a couple of weeks ago, so I just decided that this is how I'm going to be doing my sewing tutorials from now on, with Alan as a helper behind the camera, because then there is minimal editing to be done, and that is great for somebody who doesn't have time to edit yet. So today I'm going to be making some wide flared trousers for my girls. I have been lucky enough to receive this from Stuff Steep. It's organic stretch jersey green graphic pattern, and I hope that there's going to be enough for 2 pairs, one for each of my daughters, because they both really like this fabric. They help decide which one to get. So as all the time with stretch fabrics, just be aware of which direction it stretches. This one stretches in both directions, but we want the pattern in this direction. So I'm going to fold it so the front of the pattern is facing in towards each other, because then it's much easier when I'm going to mark on the back of this fabric. And Caroline, Scandi Mama, is not using patterns today. She is freestyling it with some stuff that I've already made.
Nice.
The camera is very static. Is it supposed to be that way?
No,
kind of moving about.
No.
No. Okay. Fine.
What?
Okay. I think I need the camera to move in now, because now I'm going to actually show some techniques about how to make something with something that you already have.
Yeah.
And did I say that these trousers were homemade as well? I think I did. And these are, yeah, Jolina just took them off. So they've got a little bit of knee in them. That's fine. Okay, we're going to start with the top, because that is the hardest one. So just placing this here on the fabric, and I'm going to start with measuring the back of the trousers, and I am going to make these a little bit wider. I'm going to give them a little bit more seam allowance than normally, and that's simply just because they actually wanted them a little bit looser, so that's why I'm giving it quite a good bit of seam allowance. So you can see here I have some elastic in here, and that means that this waist here is actually kind of, it's narrowed in and it needs to be folded out. So I'm just going to note it here. If I mark it, if I unfold this elastic, or if I stretch it, if I stretch this out, then it goes to around here. So I'm going to make a mark here. Yeah, it goes to here. I'm going to make a mark here, a couple of centimeters. And I'm just going to place it back where it was. But you see here, I stretch it out and then it goes to around here. So I need the fabric. I can't just have fabric going to here. I need fabric all the way out here, and then seam allowance there. And then I just basically, and I want the same seam allowance from that I have from here to here, all the way around down here. So I make a nice line. Is this a nice line?
I think it is.
You think it is?
Yeah, you tried it before.
Okay, and great. You can see here that I didn't quite notice that we have this quite wide. So this will maybe okay. Roll back the tapes.
Yeah. Start again.
No, but you saw what I did. You saw what I did, right?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna move this a little bit, because we're simply just gonna move it in.
Okay.
To get rid of this. So yeah. And we're gonna all the way down here. As you can see here, we've got the flares coming out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm also going to just give it a couple of centimeters here at the bottom, so there's something to take up. And again and again and again, we go all the way, and you can see how precise and perfect this is. Okay, I said we're going to do the back first, and perhaps you can't really see it, but we have the center here. I'm just going to mark on it because it's going to wash off anyways.
Yeah.
And this is where the seams are on these trousers. That means that I can't just make the seam allowance from here to here. I actually have to take this measurement. So say that's approximately to here. This seam, if unfolded, if I cut this bit up, if I cut this bit open, it will fold down to here. And then I need the seam allowance on top of that. So that means that I have to make this kind of curve. And then we actually have this seam coming up there. And of course, that also needs the same amount of seam allowance that I have everywhere else. So that's why. And let me just do this again, where I kind of messed it up before because I hadn't placed the fabric right. But I stretch the fabric out, it goes to, yeah. Okay, this is great. It goes to here before it was to there. That means that I have to have the seam allowance approximately there. And then because I want to do the same with these trousers that I have with these, I have this fold over the elastic that's running inside here. So again, this amount of fabric I also need to mark here. That means that we have a bit more fabric to mark up here, and I'm just gonna, in case, give it a little bit more. So this is where we cut later. And again, we have the seam running up there. If you see this seam here, and again, I need the same amount of seam allowance that I have all the other places. And then I just draw a nice curve here, kind of following the center seam. Okay, so that was marking the back of the trousers. And because, yeah, this is going to be folded down, I'm actually going to just make this corner a bit more straight here.
Okay.
So I can mark it with another color, and maybe you can see exactly where it is that I want to cut. It's here and here.
Okay.
Actually, I'll just cut now, then you can see exactly what I mean.
Smart.
Smart. So they look humongous. And remember, there was an extra bit of seam allowance here simply because the girls wanted these trousers a little bit more loose, not so tight. And you can always kind of make them with a bit more seam allowance and then just narrow them in later. That is much better than cutting them too close and then, yeah, they just get too tight and then you can't really do much about it.
Just wait for them to grow.
Well, that's a good solution. Okay, great. See, that was the back. And as I showed you, we have extra up here because this is going to be folded down, and then there's going to be an elastic running inside this here. So, off to the side. Then it's time to do the front. So, placing it here again on the fabric. Pulling it down a little bit because again we need to make sure we have enough fabric up here. So the bottom down here, that was easy, so we don't have to do much about that. So I can just very quickly mark that. The same as the other one. Oh, it wants to fall down this fabric. And again, I stretch the elastic out, mark here with my nail where it actually goes to when unfolded, and then give it again the wide seam allowance like this. And just like we have, sorry, that's not supposed to, that was a mistake because we're doing the front.
Well remembered.
Yes, I just pull the back one down here behind, and we say the front is running here, and that of course also needs some extra bit of fabric because there's going to be the fabric layer folded down, and the elastic tubing will be running inside it. So, and then remember, of course, here is the lowest part, and then it goes up here a bit in the sides, so it needs to follow that approximately. That is approximately very nice. And then we have here in the center seam here. I showed you before when we marked from the back. This is where it's the center seam is. Now we're doing the front, so I can fold this up and actually follow the seam here. So I can just mark my couple of centimeters here, and we have the seam, center seam that's going up there. So I continue this, and then yes, this is not easiest thing to do, but you can fold this in, trying not to move the rest of the trousers, and try to place it flat if you want to follow the line here. Wow, beautiful and ready. So I'm just going to cut again. And if you use a marker like this, then try to use one that will wash off when you wash the fabric, or make sure to do it on the back where it doesn't really matter if you get some markings or not. So I will make one pair of trousers now, and then just hope that there is enough for the rest. So we have the front and the back, and because I've already placed the fabric now, with front of fabric facing front of fabric, it's super easy. I don't need to do anything else to it to start sewing. So I'm going to sew here, as you can see. I'm going to sew there, up here, and I'm going to sew this center seam as well. That's what we're going to begin with. And I've got my serger, so I'm just going to run it through there real quick. Takes no time. But you can also just do this with a normal sewing machine. If you don't have a serger, and if you're not going to do it like this, I recommend that you zigzag all the edges to begin with, just to be sure that that the edges don't fray. With a serger, it's just all done in one go.
That was quick.
That was quick. It is super quick. Everybody loves a serger. So now we have the two front pieces sewn together and the two back pieces sewn together. So now you can kind of see that this is going to turn into a pair of trousers. And I always start by doing the seam down here, center seam, and the inner leg. So I take these two seams here, align them so they're up against each other, and then I start stitching from here and then all the way down the side of one leg, so the inner seam of one leg. Then I take the other leg after. And then be careful not to stretch like on. Sometimes you can accidentally stretch one part of the fabric or the other, and then you end up with two legs that aren't exactly the same length. Even though you can also end up with that, even though you're not stretching. And almost matched the length of both legs. That is good enough for me right now. Now I take down through the other inner seam, inner leg seam, now we have both inner leg seams done, the front seam and the back seam. So now it's basically stitching these two sides together, and you can see that you actually need to pull the front bit up here and then make it match the top. So you have both sides, the tops, top of the sides matching up, and then you just stitch all the way down on both sides. So I'm going to do that real quick. The good thing with the serger is that if you have cut a bit uneven, it's not completely straight, then the serger just simply cuts it off for you. But you always got to look where you're going. And be careful not to put pins in, because if you forget to take them out, they will... Yeah, that'll be better. One side done, one leg done, and again I take the front waist top and the back waist top or side and align them, put them into the machine, and just make sure the fabric is nice and straight all the way down. So that's it then, for the first part. Okay, so these are very wide and loose compared to the other ones. But yeah, so this is the part where if you have your the person who's going to wear them nearby, it's a good idea to have them try it on, and then you can see, oh my god, they are way too loose, and you can take them in a bit at the sides or in the inner seam or where you want to take them in. But I remember my kid wanted them loose, so she will get them loose. And I'm just gonna serge all the way here at the top opening and at the bottom leg openings to make sure the edges don't fray when we fold them up and hem them. So if you don't have a serger, use your 6/8 stitch and that'll be fine. And you can use a colour that matches a little bit better, but just have black in my machine. And the other one. Also, as you saw, maybe if they're a little bit uneven, then you just even that out when you put them in the serger. So time to fold them out towards the front. And you can see that they actually look like trousers. So that's pretty good. I'm going to put the serger away for now because we're done with that. And then I'm just going to find my normal sewing machine here instead. And I'm going to put it on a 6/8 stitch, quite wide. Because that's good for, I actually want to use it both for folding them up here and making it a zigzag hem here, and I also want to use it for this tunnel that I'm going to create for the elastic up here at the waist. Again, try them on, make the person who's going to wear them try them on so you are sure that they fit. Now I am just going to hope for the best. So I had seam allowance down here at the bottom that was a couple of centimeters, so I'm going to fold them up approximately that and then put them into the machine. Looking at these, I kind of think that I'll almost be able to fit into them. But that is basically typically me whenever I'm making something. I am so terrified of making something too small and wasting fabric, and I've just made enough things that were then suddenly too tight and yeah, and just a waste. So that's why I'm sometimes maybe being a little bit generous with the seam allowance and just like, well, like better that somebody can use it in a year than like nobody can use it. But this is, yeah, of course, this is a special technique, and you can also just get one of the great patterns that already exists. Or make your own pattern from one of, yeah, from your own clothes. Right, so that's the leg openings done. And always be sure to wash your fabric before you sew in it, preferably, because it might shrink a little bit, and that's often in the length of the fabric, which means that you make some trousers that fit perfectly, and then suddenly they don't fit perfectly anymore because they've gotten 5% shorter. Now there's the top left, and I need some elastic for that.
Luckily you have some
Luckily I have a little bit
to choose from.
but yeah. This is just going to be boring plain elastic that's going to go inside of this tunnel, so that doesn't need to be the beautiful fancy type. But as you saw on these trousers, I've made this space for the elastic to be in, so that means that we need to fold this fabric down as well. So you can measure it here. Yes, does my elastic fit in here? Yes, it does. Fine. And of course, see approximately how much fabric you actually gave to be folded down. And I'm going to use these wonder clips because they're wonderful and easy, and they don't hurt your fingers if you suddenly yeah, kind of make a mistake like needles and pins can do. So all the way around here, approximately the same distance. I'm folding it down, and the good thing is that this is stretchy material, so I can just stretch it to make it fit if there's somewhere that it doesn't, yeah, it's a bit uneven or something. So I'm basically going to stitch here, still with a zigzag stitch, along my serger seam here. Just put it on top of that. So into the machine. And this is also quite, I'm going to fold up a little bit. This is quite good because I can see here. As you can see, I've made lots of markings here on my sewing machine. I'm not afraid of that. But I can always make a mark here and then, follow this all the way along, so I don't suddenly get something that's a lot different in width.
That's quite smart.
That's quite smart. And you know, if you're all right about vandalizing your sewing machine, then it's quite smart. But if you don't want to do that, then option. You can use tape, you can do something else. Or you can use lots of pins and lots of other ways to help yourself. I'm not quite following on top of my serger seam now, but at least I'm keeping it the same distance from my marking. And then I just stop before I reach the end, because I've got to make sure that there is an opening here to get the elastic into and out of, and then I will close that up later. So you can see here, I haven't sewn here. There is an opening, and that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to grab my kit in a little bit. So for now, I'm just going to put my elastic bit on a big safety pin, safety needle. And then I'm going to put it into my opening here and get it all the way into this tunnel of fabric. And normally I have elastics ready that are just the exact width of me or my daughter's or whoever the thing is for, so I know yeah, I have the right amount of elastic to be put inside of it. I don't have that ready right now for some reason. But yeah, you hold on to the safety pin carefully, and then you can hold on to it all the time. Loosen it up a bit. Give it some more elastic. And yeah. Always really try to make sure that the elastic isn't folding and twisting and turning in here, but that it's lying nice and flat all the way around, because that's just much nicer when you are wearing it. So this is definitely wide enough, so I'm just going to be cutting this off and putting the pin on both ends, pinning them together, and then I'm ready for my kid to try it on. Try them on. Cool. And the kid just tried them on, and I now know where the elastic needs to be stitched together. I have made a mark here, so I'm cutting off the excess elastic and placing these two on top of each other, so I'm ready to stitch. I'm still doing that with the zigzag seam. So as you can see, this won't come apart. And where I had this opening here to put the elastic in, I'm going to make sure that that is shut as well. So I'm stitching that close. Cool. And that's it. And I'm going to show you the finished trousers on the model right away. So now I have finished the trousers, tried them on, closed them up, and my daughters just tried them on again, and I could see that they were a lot wider than they actually had to be, both because I made it with a very generous seam allowance, and also because this fabric is actually quite a lot stretchier than the fabric of the original trousers. So I just want to show you how you can fix it real quick without having to redo the whole of the trousers. So if you come over here and see, this is the side of the trousers, where I've simply just made a seam that goes down the leg here. So it just takes the extra width on the thigh and then actually just even it out here, because flares and more flares is fine. So that's a quick way you can just make an item of clothing a little bit smaller, then you have made it. If you're doing it like I am, where you are afraid to cut off too much. So now there is really just left to try them on. So thanks for watching. I'll make more videos and I hope you're going to join me again. Bye bye.